Preston Leinenbach with Otters TV. Pleasure to be joined by Matt Segal. And if that last name sounds familiar to you, his brother is the Evansville Otters hitting coach, Bobby Segal. But Matt, I really do appreciate the time and getting to speak with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Preston. I appreciate it.
So as I mentioned, you're the brother of Bobby Segal, and obviously you've been following the Otters very closely for obviously the with the family connection here in recent years. And overall, I just want to know with your thoughts about how this franchise has done staying consistent with their postseason appearance success, as well as having winning records these last handful of years.
Yeah, it's been an exciting run. My brother has been on the coaching staff for Andy McCauley since 2016. So we were hoping for a fifth season here in 2020. Obviously, we'll get into that. It's not meant to be here this year because of bigger things going on in our country and the world. But it's been a lot of fun. I live with my family in St. Louis, so we're about 3 hours from Bobby Field. I've made frequent appearances on the road when the team has come to play the Gateway Grizzlies and the River City Rascals. Unfortunately, River City no longer in the league, so that's going to be a personal hit. But I've made one or two trips every season to Evansville as well. Love Bobby Field. Appreciate all the hard work and dedication that the staff has put in, from Mr. Bill Bussing down to John Stanley. I've talked to Joel Padfield many times, and we'll get into this as well, but can certainly appreciate the work that people like you and Zane Clodfelter have done, because I've got a background in sports marketing and communications as well, and worked in AAA baseball for 4 seasons and worked multiple gigs both on the professional and college level. So see it a little differently and appreciate what you guys do to keep the fans informed, and of course all of the radio broadcasters that have been a part of the club in the 4 years that Bobby's been around. Have gotten to know those guys on a personal level and appreciate their long hours and hard work bringing the play-by-play to everybody who's followed this franchise. So excited about 2021 and beyond, but obviously a lot of things in our world have to go right before all that happens.
Yeah, and speaking of radio, you've actually jumped on the radio broadcast a few times when Evansville's made those trips over to River City and Gateway, and I know you thoroughly have enjoyed working with our broadcast interns or our play-by-play guys the last few years and getting to do that.
Yeah, it's been great. I think, I believe Jevin Redmond, who's now, I think, the voice of the Purple Aces, University of Evansville, I think he was the first. And then got to know Lucas Corley and worked some with Sam Jelinek, who I actually talked to not too long ago, and then Dave Nguyen this past year. And they've all been very gracious, letting me sit in the booth. And my wife actually has worked in baseball, professional baseball, covering the St. Louis Cardinals for a while. So there was a time before she transitioned to a different job in Major League Baseball that I was usually going to these games by myself. So it was nice to just kind of have somebody to hang out with, watch the game from the press box, and be able to maybe give a slightly different perspective. Not that I was an expert on the team by any means, but certainly listen often when I'm at home. Now we have a 2-year-old daughter, so in between bath time and doing diapers and all those other kinds of things, got the Otters going in the background. But it's been a great ride. Lots of wonderful players have come through Evansville. And as I mentioned earlier, lots of respect for Andy McCauley, Boots Day, Max Peterson, and all of the fellow coaches that Bobby has worked with. He's really enjoyed the experience thus far.
And I know you said you at least try every year to make a trip or two to Evansville to see Bobby Field. For you, when that next trip may be, how excited are you to come see some of the new renovations and upgrades here at the ballpark to take this historic ballpark to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, people talk about it being the 3rd oldest professional ballpark in America, which it is. That's really cool. Obviously, there's a lot of fanfare around A League of Their Own being filmed there and that kind of thing. But I've been reading in the Courier Press and watching some of your YouTube videos and that kind of thing. And I think Zane did a video not too long ago, kind of a virtual tour of the ballpark with all of some of the new amenities and the renovation. And I know the city and, the ownership / management group with the Otters enjoy and respect and appreciate the history of the ballpark, which is really, really cool. But I know they've done a lot here recently to try to make it a little more fan-friendly, a little more team-friendly, and try to bring it up to modern standards. So you kind of get the best of both worlds from what I understand, but I am very eager and excited to get back in 2021 and kind of see the new lights and some of the other things that I've been reading about and hearing about.
And then you mentioned earlier that you kind of a similar background as myself, communications, marketing, that kind of thing. But I want to kind of throw it back further onto the timeline for you. You went to Ball State for college and stuff. What really drew you to media relations or marketing and communications? What kind of piqued your interest to say, hey, this is kind of where the direction I want to go in terms of career path?
So both of my parents attended Ball State University as well. Bobby and I grew up in Indianapolis on the north side, and I went to Ball State. Bobby was different. He went to Indiana University in Bloomington, was a walk-on catcher for the baseball program there. I had that familiarity with Ball State through my parents. Another big factor, there were two main factors why I chose to go that route and get started in the sports field, sports industry. Number one, there was a gentleman by the name of Dr. John Reno who passed away not too long ago. He actually was the founder of the sports administration and sports management program at Ball State. I want to say he started it in the early 1990s, and he actually had two grandsons that I went to high school with at North Central in Indianapolis. So that was a factor in that comfort level there. And then I got to know at the time they called it athletic communications, but essentially the PR arm of Ball State University Athletics. I got to know a couple of the sports information directors there while I was in high school. And from day one, when I stepped on campus in the fall of 1999, they had a paid position for me as a student assistant in the athletic communications or sports information office. So I got a wealth of experience, 4.5 years. I think I was contracted to work 20 hours a week, but I certainly went above and beyond that, doing everything from writing articles, helping with publications, keeping statistics at games, working with media. Back then, social media wasn't really a thing like it is for you guys today. I've done a lot of social media in my career as I've kind of become full-time status, but we did a lot of really cool things back then to support the student athletes and coaches and programs and support them. And I know you've got experience with the local colleges and universities in addition to what you do for the Otters. So that really kick-started my career. And then I did a full-year internship at the University of Mississippi at Ole Miss, and that got me going. I guess I had 3 full-time positions in sports after that. I was with the Indianapolis Indians, as I mentioned earlier, AAA baseball, Pirates affiliate, handled all the media relations for them for 4 baseball seasons. And then moved on to the college level at the Horizon League, which is based in Indianapolis. At the time, they had 10 Division I college athletic programs in the Midwest. And then I moved to Northeast Kentucky and was the head of media relations at Morehead State University for their athletic program. That gets you up to speed to 2015 when I moved to St. Louis. Worked briefly for the St. Louis Rams. They moved to Los Angeles. And then I kind of hit the reset button on life and started to have a family, and we have a 2-year-old daughter now. So took one for the team, so to speak, but I've continued to work in marketing and communications and PR, and do a lot of sports work on the side now with ESPN and some of the local colleges and universities here in town. So I've got my hand in it. It's a big family affair, as you know, Preston, not only with Bobby. I mentioned my wife covering Major League Baseball since 2007. And our dad, Elliot, who's been to many Otters games here in recent years, works on the scores table for the Indiana Pacers. He's done that for 37 years, so that's longer than Bobby's been alive. Gets to work all the events at Bankers Life Fieldhouse, college, high school championships, and the like. But we love it. It's been a huge part of our life. And even though I'm not in it from a full-time employment standpoint, continue to really study it and pay attention and talk to a ton of people in sports because those are a lot of our personal friends at this point in life.
And you mentioned you had experience both at the collegiate level as well as professional sports as well. Is there much of a difference between the responsibilities or any difference really between working from collegiate athletics into professional sports really?
I think there is. There's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of people who have kind of similar mindsets, if you will. I think the work ethic that's needed, whether you're in the Frontier League, you're in AAA baseball, you're in Major League Baseball. I spent 10 years working with the Indianapolis Colts on game days up in the press box. So that was a real thrill. They were really good back then. Got to meet a lot of wonderful people in Indianapolis, whether it was PR folks, team employees, media members, and the like. I mean, the stakes are higher. There's so much more money involved at the highest level of professional sports. But, college sports are becoming a big business too, especially when you talk about the power conferences. I know you want to talk a little bit here in a moment about kind of the state of our country with the pandemic and everything going on. But health and safety should be number one to everybody. And in a lot of instances it is. But you also look at some of these power conferences, the SECs of the world, and you look at college football and, the revenue that comes in from those programs not only supports football, but supports all of the sport programs and all of the employees that are affiliated with these college athletic departments. And I'm sure you know this, Preston, but at the Evansville level and up in college athletics, I mean, it's a big business. There's hundreds of employees. There's millions and millions of dollars that are coming in and going out. You got some of these elite football and basketball coaches that are making millions of dollars individually. So, there's some similarities, but definitely different too. A lot of people thought that I had broke the bank when I went to work for the St. Louis Rams, thought that I was driving a BMW and living in, a $500,000 house and just rolling in the dough because the starting running back might have been making $4 or $5 million. But I can tell you that clearly doesn't lead to the front office salaries, and you know that. So
yeah, it's a little bit misconstrued sometimes in the perspective of the casual general public fan.
right.
You mentioned working before we get into the pandemic talk, the Indianapolis Indians, so how much of a grind a baseball season truly can be. What do you miss about working in baseball from that perspective, and give our fans a second perspective on, again, how long a baseball season typically can be, especially with more games than even what we
Yeah.
play at the AAA level.
We had 144 regular season games in 152 days back then. I didn't travel on a regular basis, but similar to what you do and the folks who work with you, I was listening to the broadcasts. I was writing pregame releases or preview stories, was often writing recaps, was sending emails and other messaging to local media, keeping them informed. A big thing at that level. And you guys have this too, because there's been a wealth of players who have earned a spot in affiliated baseball from the Frontier League. But back then, I felt like the roster was a revolving door, up and down and all around, guys doing well, being promoted to the major leagues, guys potentially struggling, going down to AA, which was Altoona, Pennsylvania at the time. My first year in Indianapolis was 2005 with the Indians. Like I said, I spent 4 years there. That was the beginning of their affiliation with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and to this day, they're still a Pirates affiliate. So I look back, I mean, we did crazy things. We worked 14-hour days. You've got a 7 p.m. game that goes extra innings, and you got a school day special the next day at 11 a.m., and you got so much work to cram in between wrapping up the 7 p.m. game and getting ready for the 11 a.m. contest. I'll share a quick story with you if you don't mind. My very first game in professional baseball in 2005, I'm a 23-year-old kid, probably head spinning in the first place, intimidated, got, at the time, my dream job in my hometown working in professional baseball, one step from the major leagues. And Curt Schilling, who everybody knows, who pitched with the Bloody Sock in the World Series the previous year, he was the visiting team starting pitcher against Indianapolis. He was on a rehab assignment for the Pawtucket Red Sox. And there was a guy pitched for Indianapolis who a lot of baseball fans will know the name Zach Duke, who was a starter for the Pirates and bounced around. He was with the Reds and the Cardinals and the Cubs, I think, at one point. I mean, he was with 7 or 8 major league teams, and I think he just retired a year ago. So he had like 13 or 14 years, AAA level or higher. But it was Curt Schilling for Pawtucket, Zach Duke for Indianapolis. We had 50-plus media members at the ballpark. This is my very first game in professional baseball because of Schilling. I mean, we had USA Today and the Boston Globe, and we had National Associated Press coverage, and ESPN sent a huge production truck. We were on SportsCenter that night, and the whole deal, not to mention statewide media from all corners of Indiana, people that wouldn't acknowledge the Indians otherwise. And we used probably half the suites in the ballpark for media. And I went home that night, Preston, and I said, if every day is going to be like this, you can have my 2-week notice tomorrow. because I did not sign up for a circus at 23 years old with the little amount of money that I was making, but I powered through that, had a great time. The relationships are really the ones that I will hold on to for many years, the memories and relationships. We had so many guys who went to the major leagues, guys who did really well at the next level. I won't get into that list because it would take me 10 or 15 minutes. Coaching staff was phenomenal too. One coach of note who's continued to do great in Major League Baseball, Hensley Bam Bam Mullins, who's actually a pretty good personal friend of mine. He was the hitting coach and bench coach for San Francisco for many years. He's currently the bench coach for the New York Mets. He's been rumored several times to be a finalist for a major league managing job, and I think he really will get over the top at some point. But he's got 3 World Series rings from his time on the field staff with the Giants. So, you know, to just reach out to somebody like that, he was the first major league player from the island of Curacao, and you know, all of his accolades and resume, you know, you put that aside and I just think of him as a guy, a person, a friend, somebody, if I text, he's going to text me back, somebody I've seen in Indianapolis. I met up with him in Denver last year. So that's just one isolated example. There are lots of guys, you know, players, coaches, front office people. I know several people that are broadcasting in the major leagues now that ran that international league circuit. So it just, those memories will be with me for many, many years. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. And the one thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up on this topic, is that people who have come through minor league baseball, whether it's the Frontier League, the AAA baseball, and any level in between, I will always vouch for those people because in my mind, they know how to work. They know how to grind. They know how to work 25 consecutive days without a day off. They know what the sacrifice is like, missing important family functions, working on holidays, working nights and weekends, traveling. So I really appreciate, you know, it's not just lip service when I say I appreciate you and Zane and the broadcasters and the other people in the front office who really are the unsung heroes of Evansville baseball, because those people are with the team every step of the way. And, you know, the team in terms of the coaches and players couldn't do what they do without all the support from above.
We definitely, from or at least our word, we definitely appreciate those sentiments, and like I said, for you know, the general public who doesn't really, I mean, working in baseball, it is an absolute grind. It is an absolute haul and a long season, and you got to find ways to somehow get, you know, make it loose, make it relaxed, and take the good moments out of it. And for those who are definitely outside of the media relations or, you know, sports information communication circles, it's sometimes a thankless job as well, because it kind of goes unnoticed and under the radar. But yet, like you said, those relationships and friendships that you make it all worthwhile, and those connections that hopefully, you know, last for a lifetime for sure. And speaking of which, you've mentioned you've met a lot of people along the way, collegiately, professionally as well. And with this year, the way it's been, when there's been no sports for those who work in the industry, what have some of those people said about how they've either handled the situation or what they've kind of gone through this year, when, like I said, there's been no sports for most of the year?
It's been crazy, Preston, hasn't it? I mean, unlike anything we've seen in our lifetime. I don't think you and I are experts on the Spanish flu in the early 1900s, but it's been wild. I mean, I literally did not think there was anything on the face of the earth that could completely shut down March Madness, and I didn't think there was anything that would reduce Major League Baseball's regular season to 60 games from 162, and the list goes on and on and on. And it's been sad. I mean, you know, it's hit home with close friends, with family. Obviously, Bobby's wife has a job. She's a dentist up in Princeton, Indiana. So they're going to survive. They're going to be okay. He's kind of reverted more into a stay-at-home dad. He's got 3 kids now. So he's been busy. But this is the first time, I think, in like 16, 17 years that he hasn't had a summer baseball season, whether it was a player going back to his walk-on days at Indiana, through the college ranks, through the independent league ranks. He's made several stops in his coaching career. You know, things were a little uneasy with my wife and her situation with Major League Baseball. I don't think her job was ever really threatened per se, but you know that, you know, it's like an $11 billion industry with a B, and when there's no fans and when the game schedule is greatly reduced and there's so many question marks, now you got the Marlins and the Cardinals and the Reds and all these teams having problems and outbreaks. just spoke to a good friend of mine who is the head of media relations for Ball State University Athletics, who was let go due to coronavirus budget cuts. I mean, these are people that have been in the business 15, 20 years and are quality human beings and quality professionals. And the biggest thing, Preston, nobody really has answers. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a medical professional. I don't pretend to be one. We're all praying for a vaccine and hoping that will just change things. But it's probably going to be several more months realistically. So I think all we can do at this point, and I know this is mandatory in a lot of cities, counties, and states, is, and I don't mean to preach politically here, but please wear your mask, please wash your hands, social distance, all the things that we hear repeatedly, I think are very critical. If it doesn't stop the virus, it can at least slow it down. But it's tough because Ball State, for example, I read in the Indianapolis Star they were supposed to play Michigan and Indiana this year in football. It was $1.7 million of guaranteed money between the two non-conference opponents. When the Big Ten said we're not playing non-conference, and then the Big Ten and the MAC completely wiped out fall football, I think of my close friends. I think of my former colleagues, because I know that to a school like Ball State, cutting $1.7 million out of the athletic budget, that means people are going to start losing jobs. And it's really unfortunate, not to mention just the excitement that people like you and I get from sitting on the couch and watching a game. And yeah, we're all getting adjusted to watching the NBA or Major League Baseball or hockey or whatever with no fans. And yeah, there's crowd music piped in and cardboard cutouts and all this stuff, but it's different. And to know that a whole Cardinal season will go by, we live 25 minutes from the ballpark on the west side of St. Louis. And for me not to be able to see a Major League Baseball game in person this year, it's tough. But, there are bigger, more important things going on in the world right now. And I think we all have to understand that even if we've had it tough, Bobby and I lost a grandmother to COVID. We lost a close friend and our high school athletic director in Indianapolis. But I think I lost a full-time job as well. I'm not sure if you even knew that. I'm getting close to trying to knock down that door for my next step. But, when any of us start to feel sorry for ourselves, you have to remember that there are other people that are really struggling, that are really, I've got a roof over my head, I've got food on the table, my daughter's healthy, my wife's healthy. We're in good shape overall. And we count our blessings. We're very thankful. And, we keep people that are really, really struggling and having a tough time in society kind of in our thoughts moving forward, because we know a lot of people out there, their world has truly been flipped upside down, whether they're affiliated with sports or not.
Yeah, it's just so important right now. One, to do what we're supposed to do, take care of ourselves and do what we can to help others take care of themselves as well, and just try to keep picking each other up during and throughout all this. And then also during the summer, as you well know, when there's no games to give game updates on or write game recaps on, you still have to keep the fans and the public engaged to your organization, keep them connected. And as you know, there's been a lot of different creative ways to do that this year.
Yeah. And, I really want to credit Mr. Bill Bussing and the ownership and management with the Otters. And I realize they're running a business, and I know they're good business people and stuff, but I really want to commend them for keeping the core staff together. I think it's important. I know you and others have been working hard on these virtual games. I'm on your email list. I get updates. I don't think, as tough as it may be when no money is coming in from fans spending, buying tickets and concessions and whatnot at Bosse Field, I think it is really important. It's even more critical for your online communications folks and your marketing people to keep people engaged, because I don't think you can completely flip off the switch from the Evansville Otters for 5, 6, 7, 8 months and then flip it back on, because, you don't want to become a distant memory to your local fan base. And I applaud what all of you have done in terms of like the virtual games and the YouTube interviews. I've watched many of them with Andy McCauley and current players and former players, and just keeping baseball in people's minds. I'm trying to give them a little bit of hope, a little bit of excitement, something to look forward to down the road. You got to try as much as you can, even though you can't offer an in-person product on the field that people are used to. I think any touch points from a marketing standpoint, a sales standpoint, I think are very important. And just, reminding people that we're all going to get through this, but we have to do it together. And really just building up even more excitement for the 2021 Frontier League season. not only the ballpark renovations, which we talked about earlier in the interview, but like the merger with the Can-Am League, and just lots of interesting things going on. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but now making the Frontier League the largest independent league in the country. There's some cool stuff behind the curtain that nobody has seen. And I hope that the fans will stick with the Otters through this, support, the team, the franchise, the players, and, really come out once it's safe to do so, hopefully at the beginning of 2021, and be there in full force at Bosse Field, and keep this team and franchise moving in a positive direction, a winning direction too on the field.
Yeah, that's definitely the goal. As we all felt we had and the coaching staff had put together a good team that could compete for a championship this year, and hopefully that can carry over into next year, whatever the team may look like for next year as well. Now, kind of toward the end of this, I do want to get your fans' perspective on some of the big four major sports and how they've adapted. Hockey, they're playing in their respective hubs, their respective bubbles. Yeah, kind of a different look this year between the round robin and the qualifiers now actually into the playoffs. The NBA kind of doing a similar thing where they finished out their regular season. Now they're in their actual playoffs and their hubs and their bubble down in Orlando. And for Major League Baseball, shortened season, new rules, kind of experimenting with universal DH between both leagues. The shortened innings and the double headers, as well as the extra man starting on second base and extra innings. How do you to kind of absorb and take in what all these different leagues are doing to adapt to the situation this year?
No two leagues look alike. I'm going to tell you half serious and half joking before I get into answering your question. As we record this interview, the St. Louis Blues have played 5 games in their opening round playoff series, but they're playing up in Canada in a different time zone. And I got to tell you, Preston, I'm going to be an old man because 9:30 starts here in St. Louis are not doing me very well. I'm making it through the first period, and then at 6:30 or 7 the next morning, I'm getting caught up on social media. But, as far as the NBA and the NHL, I mean, I commend them. I'm just speaking from a general fan perspective here. They've created this bubble concept. I think it's very good. I think they have the financial means at those levels to test frequently, monitor heavily, that kind of thing. I've seen multiple reports in succession of the NBA tested 4,000 people and, have no positive tests or whatever the case may be. And their numbers are extremely low. I mean, you need a, magnifying glass to see them. So kudos to professional basketball and professional hockey. In terms of baseball, I think they're doing the best they can, quite honestly. That, it's easy for people who are uninformed to say Major League Baseball needs to throw everybody in a bubble. Well, Major League Baseball is an everyday sport. Find me 1 square mile or a couple square miles, a tight space radius where you've got 15 up to par Major League Baseball diamonds. Mm-hmm. This is not, 12-year-old travel ball where you can play 4 or 5 games a day on the same field. That's not going to work. So I've talked with my wife about this too, because she's got 13 years of experience working with Major League Baseball and really being in the thick of things. And the bubble concept is just not very realistic for Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
So I think at this point, they do have the means to test and monitor, but it's going to take an extreme amount of discipline from the players and the people who are in these traveling parties. I mean, for young guys that are making a couple $1 million a year to be on a road trip in Chicago or whatever, really to buckle down and do what they need to do to keep everybody safe and healthy and keep their professional livelihood going, and therefore keeping everybody, keeping all the fans engaged and excited. I mean, it was weird because, I told you I live here in St. Louis, and the Cardinals played, I think, 5 games, and then they abruptly chopped it off, and they had like 2+ weeks of nothing. So they had like a second restart. And then my wife and I were watching some games. They were playing the White Sox and Cubs this past week. Mm-hmm. We think we're pretty dialed in and I mean, my wife lived this life with the Cardinals for 7 straight years. And I'm like, there's like 6 or 7 guys making their big league debut on one road trip. And I'm like, obviously I don't know much about the Cardinals minor league system because I don't know who these guys are. So anyways, and I'm interested to see if college football they call them the stubborn 6, I guess, the 6 conferences that are still saying they're going to play. I got news for you. I mean, we're recording this here in mid-August, a little after the midpoint of the month, and a lot of them aren't starting till late September. A lot of things can go wrong in a month's time. I don't mean to be a pessimist or negative Nancy, but we're already seeing college campuses with the general student population, the Michigan States, the North Carolinas, the Notre Dames, that thought they were going to do traditional class that said, nope, just kidding. We're going to go to online and we're shutting down campus. So I think there's still going to be some more bumps in the road. How significant they are, I don't know. And then really I've heard, I don't know about you, but I've heard very little about the NFL. So again, it's a very powerful league. It's $1 billion industry. If they can figure it out, great. But it is a contact sport. You got a ton of people on the field. And some of them have even said they're going to put fans in the stands. I know there's an insane amount of money on the line, but I just, my personal opinion is that it's going to be really hard to do. I don't know, but you spoke about rule changes. I won't get into all of that, but it has been different. Baseball traditionalists, anti-DH in the NL and 2 7-inning games. And I don't know, it doesn't bother me. Some people in your audience might be deeply disturbed by it, but I like to see a real hitter hit. So I'm pro DH, and I've been in an environment, Frontier League, AAA.
Right.
I umpired high school baseball for several years in my 20s, and almost all those games were 7 innings. So, it doesn't bother me. I was talking to my wife and I said, you've covered many split double headers as a sports writer with 2 9-inning games in the major leagues. I said, that can be a 14, 16-hour workday. I said, now they're doing back-to-back 7-inning games because there's no fans. So it doesn't matter about the 2 separate tickets. And I'm like, these writers are probably in and out in 8 or 9 hours. You used to do 16 hours on a doubleheader. So their lives are a lot easier, but be that as it may, it's everybody's got to adjust and be flexible and just be thankful that there's some kind of product for us to at least watch on television at this point.
Yeah, and going back to what you mentioned earlier with baseball, kind of the bubble theory for baseball. Well, at one point, the closest thing they could think of was kind of keeping all the teams in their spring training states, respectively. But yet they're still going to be traveling, and there's still a huge risk there for sure. And for anybody who's either gone to a collegiate conference tournament, there's no way to get all that many games in a single day, because even it's tough sometimes to get 4 or 5 games in, as you mentioned earlier. And even with hockey, when the game went to 5 overtimes a couple weeks ago, and with the Lightning, and they end up having to push a game back to the next morning. I mean, there's so much that to work with and so little time and space, so to speak. And with football, I know that they might try to do it kind of as regular as they can. They may push for a bubble in postseason. That's the only thing I've kind of heard. But with that, they have a kind of a slightly extended postseason as well, playoffs. So that may be kind of in jeopardy later on as well. But in terms of the actual rules with baseball, like I mentioned, the 7 innings for the doubleheaders, extra man starting on second base, and extra innings.
Yeah.
Well, that's similar to what the Frontier League pretty much does in minor league baseball. And you kind of alluded to it, but do you like it? And you may kind of hope that Major League Baseball sticks with some of these rule changes to kind of keep it more uniform across the different baseball leagues here in the United States?
I mean, this is just my personal opinion. I have no insider knowledge of any of this. This doesn't even come from my wife or a family member or friend who's in baseball, but I could see the DH sticking. I really could. I don't know about the 7-inning doubleheaders. I mean, if you go back to a regular, 162 game season where doubleheaders are not very likely, I'm not sure about that.
The only appeal of that is the faster game for the younger generation to keep their attention. Yeah. That's about it.
The tiebreaker rules, I mean, I'm sure there's some people in your audience that say, I love 16-inning games where they go 5.5 hours and they finish at midnight and there's 12 people left in the stands and, that kind of thing. But it's I don't know. I mean, I think that we're in an era of Major League Baseball, especially with guys making millions of dollars. They're important assets to these franchises. And the outcome of every game means a lot. There's no question about that. But I don't know if it's healthy. I mean, it's fun to talk about on social media. Hey, I see this box score. 42 different guys played in a Major League Baseball game because it went 17 innings. Okay, whatever. But, when these games go 15, 16, 17 innings, go into the wee hours of the morning, and they have to use 8 or 9 pitchers per team, what does that do to your rotation, for the next day and the next day? And they're really concerned about guys getting overworked and, tearing up their arms. And that causes all kinds of, issues at a really high level for these, teams that are valued at, hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars. So, I mean, I understand. There's good arguments both ways. I think the average fan is going to have to just embrace whatever comes our way in 2021 and beyond, because people like you and me have absolutely no say-so in that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, Matt, I've taken enough of your time. I do really appreciate the time and talking with me about this different things and bringing in a perspective that is kind of unique to for someone who he's worked collegiately and at the professional level and as many places and who knows, there may be a new normal for the way we work in the world of sports and the sports industry with especially I know with broadcast being a lot more remote. Does that become the new normal? We'll just have to see with a lot of the functions that go into a broadcast even. But I do really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks so much. And, I think just as a final comment, you're mentioning about kind of how this is going to change the way the sports business works moving forward. And I think it will. But here again, I think people need to be flexible and adapt and take a deep breath and be appreciative of whatever product is available, however it is available. I alluded to it earlier, but I've done some freelance work with ESPN the last 4 years, a position they call talent stats and helping coordinate graphics for FBS college football. And I've been all over the country and worked with the team. And we actually, for the last couple of years, long before anybody knew who COVID or what COVID was, we've had our core team that has been working out of a studio in either Charlotte, North Carolina, or Orlando, Florida, or sometimes at the main headquarters in Bristol, Connecticut. So, it is interesting to see, but I think as time goes on, if organizations from the Otters to Major League Baseball and everywhere in between can find more efficient ways to do things and more financially responsible ways to do things, I think that's definitely going to be the case. The final comment, I have a good friend at the NCAA national office in Indianapolis. I know several people there, but he said that the NCAA has cut millions and millions of dollars from their travel budget because they used to fly athletic directors and presidents and conference commissioners and people all over the country to and from Indianapolis, put them up in hotels. And he said, now we're just getting on a Zoom call like you and I are doing right now and accomplishing pretty much the same thing. I mean, I think there's still a value to doing things in person and that kind of thing. I think that for the betterment of all levels of amateur and professional sports, I think that decision makers at a high level are going to take a look at how can we do things more efficiently and more cost effective, and the fans, I think, will adjust to that, moving forward. So I've taken enough of your time as well. Thanks so much for the opportunity today, and best wishes to you and everybody with the Otters to stay healthy and safe.
Yeah, same to you as well over in St. Louis and to your family, and stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll hope to see you at the ballpark soon.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks, Preston.
All right. That's Matt Segal. I'm Preston Leinenbach. This has been Otters TV.